Pull up a chair, because today's story is one you won't want to miss. Family. It's supposed to be a source of love, support, and unconditional acceptance. But what happens when the very people who are supposed to lift you up are the ones who push you down? Betrayal from strangers is painful, but when it comes from your own flesh and blood, the wound cuts even deeper. They called him a failure, threw him out with nothing, and never looked back. Now, years later, the tables have turned. He's the one with power, and they're the ones begging for his help. But after everything they put him through, should he let them back in? Welcome to AGS Stories, where we bring you real-life betrayals, jaw-dropping twists, and the kind of stories that make you question everything you thought you knew about family. Today's story is one of pain, redemption, and the hardest decision of all, forgiveness or closure. Let's dive in. They said I was worthless, a disappointment, a waste of space, so they threw me out. I was only 19 years old when my own family turned their backs on me. No warning, no second chances, just a cold, heartless decision. One night, I had a place to sleep, a roof over my head, even if it never really felt like home. The next, I was out in the freezing night, my bags barely zipped up before the front door slammed shut behind me. I had no job, no savings, no safety net. They told me I would never amount to anything, that I was a failure compared to Nathan, my older brother, the golden child who could do no wrong. Nathan was their pride and joy, top of his class, a business prodigy in the making. And me? I was just Ethan, the family's biggest regret. I slept on friends' couches, ate whatever scraps I could afford, and worked whatever jobs would take me. The nights felt endless, the days even worse. But I never gave up. I couldn't. Fast forward 8 years, and everything has changed. I now own the company my family once bragged about, the very same one Nathan worked at, the one they said was too good for me. And the irony? Now, they're standing at my door. Their voices shake when they ask for my help. Their eyes, once filled with disappointment, now filled with desperation. So tell me, what would you do? Would you forgive the people who threw you away like trash? Or would you turn your back the way they did, knowing they only want you now because you made it? I need your advice. Let's dive into my story. Growing up, I was always the disappointment. No matter how hard I tried, I was never enough. My older brother, Nathan, was the golden child, straight A student, captain of the debate team, a natural-born leader. My parents worshipped the ground he walked on. They called him a future CEO, a business mastermind, someone destined for greatness. And me? I was just Ethan, the quiet one, the forgettable one, the mistake. It didn't matter that I studied hard. It didn't matter that I worked part-time jobs to pay for my own things. None of it mattered. In their eyes, I would always be second place. But the worst night of my life? That night changed everything. It was my 19th birthday. Most kids get a celebration, a cake, maybe even a small gift. But for me, I got something else, a one-way ticket out of their lives. I had spent weeks preparing for college. I'd saved up money from my part-time job. I wasn't expecting my parents to pay for it. They had made it clear they wouldn't. But I thought at the very least, they'd be happy I was trying. Instead, they sat me down in the living room. My dad leaned forward, clasping his hands together, a serious look on his face. My mom's expression was unreadable. Nathan? He wasn't even there. Then the words came. Ethan, we've decided it's time for you to move on. You're a grown man now. We can't keep supporting you when there's no future here for you. I laughed, thinking it was some cruel joke. Move on? Move on to where? I asked, my voice cracking. My mom sighed. We need to focus on Nathan's future. We can't keep wasting resources on you. Wasting resources. Like I was some kind of failed investment. Like I wasn't even a person. Just a mistake they regretted. The conversation lasted less than 10 minutes. No heated argument. No yelling. Just cold, calculated rejection. They handed me a small duffel bag with some of my things and told me to figure it out. By the time I realized what had happened, I was standing on the sidewalk, staring at the locked door of the only home I had ever known. The next few months were hell. I crashed on friends' couches when I could. On nights when I had nowhere to go, I slept in bus stations, under bridges, anywhere that kept me out of the cold. I took whatever jobs I could find: fast food, janitorial work, delivery driving. The kind of jobs nobody wanted. I barely made enough to eat. Some nights, I didn't eat at all. But no matter how bad it got, I refused to break. I refused to let their words define me. Then one day, everything changed. A chance encounter. I was working a shift at a rundown diner, scrubbing tables and refilling coffee when I met him. Robert Mitchell, a well-dressed older man with sharp eyes and a presence that demanded respect. He wasn't just some random customer. He was a businessman. And for some reason, he saw something in me that my own family never did. "Kid, you work hard. You ever think about doing something bigger than this?" He asked me one night after I served him his usual black coffee. I laughed bitterly. Yeah, but life had other plans. He didn't accept that answer. Instead, he asked questions. He wanted to know my story. So I told him everything. And at the end of it, he looked me in the eye and said something I'll never forget. "Ethan, you're not useless. You were just surrounded by the wrong people." That moment changed everything. Robert became my mentor. He taught me everything: how to run a business, how to negotiate deals, how to lead. He gave me an opportunity, not a handout. And I took it. I worked harder than I ever had in my life. I barely slept. I read every business book, took online courses, shadowed Robert at meetings. And after years of grinding, I got the chance of a lifetime. A company, one on the verge of collapsing, was up for sale. And guess what? It was the same company Nathan worked at, the one my parents had always bragged about, the one they said was too good for me. I didn't hesitate. I put everything I had into buying shares, taking control. And I didn't just save the company. I owned it. Now, after 8 years, I stood at the top. And just when I thought I had finally left the past behind, the past came knocking on my door. Literally. It was my mother, my father, and behind them, Nathan. Their clothes weren't as nice as they used to be. My father looked older, more tired. My mother's face was lined with stress. And Nathan? The confidence he always carried was gone. For a moment, I just stared. They didn't know what to say at first. My mother started crying. My father looked away. And Nathan? He just stood there, hands in his pockets, silent. Then my mother spoke. "Ethan, we made a mistake. We were wrong. We need your help now. Not we're sorry. Not we regret hurting you. Just we need your help." And that's when I realized they weren't sorry for what they did. They were just sorry for where they ended up. Now, I have a choice to make. Do I help them anyway? Or do I walk away, knowing that the only reason they care now is because I succeeded? I need your thoughts. What would you do in my place? Should I give them a second chance? Or should I let them feel the same abandonment they put me through? Comment below. I need your advice. Wow, you guys really had some strong opinions about this one. I didn't expect so many of you to relate to my story, but the response has been overwhelming. Let's take a look at some of the top comments. Speech Balloon at realtalk_92. They didn't care about you when you had nothing. Why should you care now? They threw you away like trash. And now that you're successful, they suddenly remember you exist? Don't fall for it. People like that will never change. Speech Balloon at Melanie Cares. I get why you're hesitant. I mean, they were awful to you. But revenge isn't the answer. You don't have to forgive them, but maybe hear them out. See if they truly regret it. If they don't, walk away. But if they do, maybe there's a chance to rebuild. On your terms. Speech Balloon at No More Toxic Ties. This isn't about revenge. This is about self-respect. If you let them back in without consequences, they'll just take advantage of you again. Do what's best for you. Protect your peace. Success isn't just about money. It's about knowing your worth. The protagonist pauses, taking a deep breath. The background music shifts to something contemplative. It's crazy seeing how many of you understand this. For years, I thought I was alone, that maybe I was overreacting. But reading your comments, it's clear this isn't just my story. So many of you have gone through something similar. Some of you say I should cut them off completely. Others think I should give them a chance, but with conditions. And honestly, I still don't know what to do. When I opened the door that night and saw them standing there, looking desperate, something inside me froze. Part of me wanted to slam the door in their faces, just like they did to me all those years ago. But another part of me wanted to believe that people can change. That maybe, just maybe, they actually regretted what they did. But then I remembered the way my mother spoke. She didn't say, "We're sorry for what we did." She didn't say, "We regret hurting you." She said, "We need your help." Not an apology, not even a real acknowledgement of the past. Just a request, no, an expectation that I would step in and fix their problems. And that's what makes this decision so hard. I don't want to be cruel. I don't want to become the kind of person who takes pleasure in someone else's downfall. But at the same time, I can't just forget what they did. So I have to ask again, what would you do? Would you walk away and never look back? Or would you give them a second chance, with rules, with boundaries, and with no guarantees? Let me know in the comments. I'm reading every single one. After reading your comments, I made a decision. I was going to meet them. I wasn't sure what to expect. Would they apologize? Would they finally admit what they did? Or would this just be another selfish plea for help? The moment I walked into the coffee shop, I spotted them immediately. My mom, dad, and Nathan sat at a corner booth, looking uncomfortable, out of place. They weren't dressed like the proud, wealthy family I once knew. My dad's suit looked worn. My mother's hands fidgeted with a napkin. And Nathan? He barely looked up when I approached. I sat down. No small talk. No fake pleasantries. Just straight to the point. "So, what do you want?" I asked, my voice even but cold. My mom's eyes welled with tears almost instantly. My dad sighed, running a hand down his face, looking anywhere but at me. And Nathan? He just clenched his jaw, saying nothing. Then my mom finally spoke. "We made a mistake. We were wrong. We need your help now." I felt my stomach tighten. Not "we're sorry for abandoning you." Not "we regret how we treated you." Just "we need your help." I stayed silent, watching them, waiting. But no apology came. Just silence. I leaned back in my seat, my fingers tapping against the table. "You're going to have to be more specific," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "What exactly do you need from me?" My dad finally spoke up. "Nathan lost his job a few months ago. The company, well, it's struggling. And we lost a lot of money. Bad investments, some debts we couldn't pay off. We had to sell the house. The house. The same house they had kicked me out of without a second thought. I let that sink in for a moment. "And now?" I asked. My mom dabbed her eyes with a napkin, her voice trembling. "Now we don't have anywhere to go. We need a fresh start. We need stability." Nathan scoffed at that, finally speaking up. "What she means is, we need you to fix this mess." His tone was bitter, resentful, like I was somehow responsible for their downfall. I couldn't help it. I laughed. A short, humorless laugh that made my mother wince. "You need me to fix it? Nathan, didn't you used to tell me I'd never amount to anything? That I was a waste of space?" His jaw tightened. He didn't deny it. I turned back to my parents. "And you," I said, my voice sharper now. "You threw me out like I was nothing. You didn't care if I starved, if I ended up on the street. And now, years later, because things didn't go the way you planned, you suddenly remember I exist." My mom shook her head frantically. "No, honey, it's not like that." "Then what is it like?" I cut in, my voice unwavering. The silence stretched between us, heavy, suffocating. I exhaled, shaking my head. "You're not sorry," I finally said. "You're not here because you regret what you did. You're here because you need something from me. That's the only reason." My dad let out a heavy sigh, rubbing his temples. "Ethan, we know we made mistakes, but family is family. We just need a little help getting back on our feet. That's all." I stared at him, disbelief bubbling in my chest. "Family is family?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. "Funny, that wasn't what you said when you kicked me out with nothing but a duffel bag." Nathan crossed his arms. "Look, we get it, okay? You're doing great now. You proved us all wrong. Congratulations. But are you seriously going to hold a grudge forever? You're rich now, Ethan. You could help us without even feeling it." Something inside me snapped. "A grudge?" I repeated, my voice dark with anger. "You think this is just a grudge? You destroyed me. You made me feel like I was worthless. I had to fight for everything I have now while you sat in your comfortable lives, never once wondering what happened to me. And now, because you lost everything, you suddenly think I owe you something." My mom sobbed softly, but I didn't feel an ounce of sympathy. I stood up, pushing my chair back. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm not going to give you handouts. I won't hand you money, and I won't let you manipulate me into fixing your problems. But I'll make you an offer." They all looked up, hopeful. "Nathan, if you want a job at my company, you start from the bottom. No favors, no special treatment, just hard work. You earn every dollar. And as for you too, I looked at my parents. I'll help you find a place to stay. But only if you acknowledge what you did. Admit you were wrong. Actually say the words." My mom's breath hitched. My dad's lips pressed into a thin line. "And Nathan?" He scoffed again. "So that's it? Some kind of test," he spat. "No, Nathan. It's called accountability." I shot back. I waited. I gave him the chance. But my dad clenched his jaw. My mom only wept, and Nathan shook his head, muttering under his breath. They refused. And in that moment, I knew they hadn't changed. I exhaled slowly, letting the disappointment settle. Then, without another word, I turned and walked away. I didn't look back, and I have no regrets. I stood up, pushing my chair back. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm not going to give you handouts. I won't hand you money, and I won't let you manipulate me into fixing your problems. But I'll make you an offer." They all looked up, hopeful. "Nathan, if you want a job at my company, you start from the bottom. No favors, no special treatment, just hard work. You earn every dollar. And as for you too, I looked at my parents. I'll help you find a place to stay. But only if you acknowledge what you did. Admit you were wrong. Actually say the words." My mom's breath hitched. My dad's lips pressed into a thin line. "And Nathan?" He scoffed again. "So that's it? Some kind of test," he spat. "No, Nathan. It's called accountability." I shot back. I waited. I gave him the chance. But my dad clenched his jaw. My mom only wept, and Nathan shook his head, muttering under his breath. They refused. And in that moment, I knew they hadn't changed. I exhaled slowly, letting the disappointment settle. Then, without another word, I turned and walked away. I didn't look back, and I have no regrets. After my last update, you guys had even more thoughts on this. I wasn't expecting such a massive response, but reading through your comments, I realized something. I wasn't alone in this. A lot of you have dealt with toxic family members, betrayal, and the tough decision of whether to forgive or walk away. Let's look at some of the top comments. Speech balloon at truthhurts_91. If they can't even apologize, they don't deserve a second chance. An apology costs nothing, but it proves everything. If they can't admit their mistakes, they'll never change. You did the right thing. Speech balloon at second chances matter. I get why you walked away, but I think you should have given them one final test. Not for them, but for your own peace of mind. If they passed, maybe there was a chance for reconciliation. If they failed, at least you'd know for sure. I sat with those words for a long time. And to be honest, I still don't know if I made the right choice. The weight of the decision. Walking away from my family wasn't easy. It wasn't some dramatic moment of triumph. It felt hollow. But here's the thing, I gave them a chance. I offered them a way back in, but only if they took accountability. They refused. Not because they were incapable of saying sorry, but because their pride was more important than our relationship. That told me everything I needed to know. Maybe some people really do deserve a second chance. Maybe in another life, in a different situation, I would have been willing to give them one. But not like this. Not when they still refuse to acknowledge the pain they caused. Some of you think I should have tested them further. Others say I should never have entertained the idea of helping them at all. And honestly, I respect both perspectives. At the end of the day, this isn't just about revenge. It's about self-respect. I spent years proving my worth, not to them, but to myself. And I refuse to let the same people who abandoned me walk back into my life as if nothing happened. So yeah, I walked away. And for the first time in a long time, I feel free. Meeting them one last time was never part of the plan. After everything, after the years of silence, after the abandonment, after proving myself in ways they never thought I could, I never imagined I'd willingly sit across from them again. But I did. And in those moments, I realized something that changed me forever. I was no longer the broken kid they left behind. I walked into the meeting with no expectations. If anything, I was hoping for closure. A part of me, no matter how small, still wanted to believe that people could change. That maybe, just maybe, they had learned something from their downfall. But as soon as I saw them sitting there, stiff and uncomfortable, I knew the truth before a single word was spoken. This wasn't a moment of reconciliation. It was a transaction. I sat down, keeping my expression unreadable. I refused to be the vulnerable one this time. I'm not the same person you threw away. The words left my mouth before I even had time to think about them. And for the first time in my life, I saw fear in my parents' eyes. Not fear of me, but fear of the consequences of their own actions. They knew they had no power over me anymore. My mother wiped her eyes with a tissue, her voice trembling. We didn't know, Ethan. We didn't know things would turn out like this. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head. You didn't know? Or you didn't care? My father cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. What's the point of talking about the past? He muttered. That was it. The final confirmation I needed. They weren't sorry. They didn't regret abandoning me. They regretted the consequences of abandoning me. I leaned forward, looking at my brother Nathan, who had barely spoken a word. You want to work at my company? I asked, my voice firm but calm. Fine, but you start at the bottom. No favors. No handouts. Just work. Nathan finally met my gaze. For a second, I thought he might agree. But then he scoffed, shaking his head. You expect me to take orders from you? He asked, his voice laced with bitterness. That's a joke. I turned to my parents. I'll help you find a place to stay, I said. But only if you admit what you did. The air in the room shifted. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. My father's jaw tightened. Nathan looked away. And that's when I knew. They couldn't do it. Saying, we need help, was easy. Admitting they were wrong was impossible. Because that would mean admitting they had made a mistake in throwing me away. It would mean acknowledging that they had underestimated me. That their golden child, Nathan, wasn't the one who succeeded. It was me. And their pride wouldn't allow it. I let out a slow exhale, the last bit of hope I had for them disappearing into the silence. Then there's nothing left to talk about, I said, standing up. My mother reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Ethan, please, she whispered, her voice desperate now. But it was too late. I had given them a chance. I had offered them a way to earn their way back into my life. And they refused, not because they didn't need my help, but because their pride mattered more than our relationship. As I left the room, a strange sense of peace settled over me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't even sad. I was free. For so long, I had carried the weight of their rejection. I had fought to prove them wrong, to prove to myself that I wasn't worthless. But standing there looking at them, I realized I never needed their validation to begin with. I made it without them, and I would continue to thrive without them. I walked out of that meeting without looking back, and I have no regrets. This story isn't about revenge. It's about knowing your worth. I spent years chasing something that never existed, approval from people who never truly saw me. But now, I see myself, and that's enough. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean letting people hurt you over and over again. Sometimes walking away is the only way to truly move forward. So tell me, did I make the right choice? Would you have done the same? This story was never about money. It was never about proving something to my family or seeking revenge. It was about knowing my worth, something I spent years trying to understand. For the longest time, I thought success would be the answer. That if I could just make it big, if I could just become someone they'd respect, they'd finally see me as valuable. But the truth is, they never needed to change how they saw me. I needed to change how I saw myself. And once I did, their validation no longer mattered. The hardest lesson, walking away from them, wasn't easy. There was a part of me that wanted to hold on to the idea that people can change, that maybe they'd realize their mistakes and try to make things right. But what I learned is this: not everyone deserves a place in your life just because they share your blood. Family isn't defined by DNA. It's defined by respect, love, and accountability. If someone refuses to acknowledge how they hurt you, they will do it again. Maybe not in the same way, maybe not today, but eventually they will. That's why I chose myself. I chose peace over resentment. I chose self-respect over guilt. And I chose to walk away with my head held high, knowing I did everything I could. And that was the most freeing decision I've ever made. I know a lot of you will ask, but do you forgive them? Here's my answer: yes. But that doesn't mean I forget. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what someone did. It isn't about pretending the past never happened. It's about letting go of the anger so it no longer controls you. I forgave them, not for their sake, but for mine, because carrying resentment would only hurt me in the long run. But forgiving doesn't mean welcoming them back into my life. It doesn't mean handing them another chance to betray me. Sometimes walking away is the only way to truly move forward. So now I ask you, did I make the right choice? Would you have done the same? Would you have given them another chance? Or would you have walked away like I did? I want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. I read every single one. And if you've ever dealt with something like this, betrayal, toxic family, or the struggle of knowing your worth, I want you to know you're not alone. You deserve to be valued. You deserve respect. And sometimes choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. Stay connected. If you love real-life betrayals, stories of redemption, and powerful life lessons, then trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join this community. And if this story resonated with you, give this video a thumbs up. It helps more people find stories like this. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. And remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's success. See you in the next one.